The Nuggets lose game 3 behind an absolutely incredible performance from Devin Booker. Nikola Jokic has an incredible game of his own, but it's not enough in the first team lets Nikola down game of the playoffs. We'll get into the details why, what it means for the rest of the series and going forward, all that and more on Locked On Nuggets.
You are Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast, part of the Locked On Network, your team every day. Thanks for joining us and making us part of your day and making us your first listen. We appreciate you guys being a part of the community, whether you're joining us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. We're hanging out with us in the chat comment section over on YouTube as we record this on Saturday afternoon. Folks like Vlada and Josh Winninger's in here. Lots of folks hanging out with us. Reed Pike, there's a user handle I can't actually say is in here. Reed says Malone needs to play Kamagate. Good adjustment there.
He hasn't done it once in the series, man.
Hasn't done it once. Has not gone to it. There was the resistance from Malone to go to the young guys. Just embarrassing. Today's show is brought to you by by Locked On Podcast Network. We don't have a providing sponsor for today. I'm Matt Moore, senior NBA writer for the Action Network, joined by Adam Mares. He is director of content for DNVR. You check out the pre and post game shows before every Nuggets game. Nuggets lose to the Phoenix Suns. I'm here in Denver as we record this. I love in Phoenix, by the way. The arena is awesome. Game ops is awesome. The media food is very good. The food in general here is awesome. Had a really good meal yesterday. Enjoying my time in Phoenix, and people have been very nice.
Shout out to Graham Wincott, former Nuggets VP of marketing, who unfortunately left for Phoenix, despite being a lifelong Nuggets fan. Oof. They stole him, and he's done a good job, including helping bring the Rally of the Valley jerseys, the best jerseys I think of the last 20 years, bringing them out. So shouts, pretty good. Another one that got slipped through the cracks in Kroenke Sports.
Nuggets lose 121-114. Big takeaways from this game we'll get into. We'll talk about the Murray dynamic. We'll talk about that. We are going to have the Jeff Green debate. We'll have the whole kit and caboodle on today's show. And in the second segment, I want to get into what we think the concern level is for the Nuggets after this one. Adam, you've now done a rewatch. I've done a rewatch. What's your big takeaway from Game 3?
There's a couple of them. I would be split between, some notes on Jamal Murray, but I'll rather save those for maybe a little bit later. To me, it was Denver's bench has been a positive, so much so that everybody and their mom wrote an article about how good the Denver bench has been in the playoffs. And no sooner did those articles drop, the Suns make an adjustment that I thought was very interesting. You always look at any combination of players and say, okay, what are they good at? What are they bad at? And Jeff Green, Aaron Gordon front court, very good at switching everything. They're versatile. That's the advantage. And by giving another starter, in this case, Aaron Gordon, to the bench, I think, you make that a very positive impact lineup. The thing they're weak at is rebounding. And the move that the Suns made, a surprise move to me, maybe it shouldn't have been because I wasn't as familiar with his game. Jock Landale is an incredible rebounder. I said last night at DNVR, he has Julius Randle strength, where he looks big, but somehow he's stronger than he looks, because even Jokic was having a hard time pushing him off of his space. But Jock Landale also, I think, a good enough defender and mobile enough that it's not, DeAndre Jordan or some big. It's okay, we're going to put a big out there, but now you're vulnerable on the other side. Jock, I think, is a smart player, knows exactly where he has to go on the court on the offensive end to cause that specific front court problems, and then didn't really lose anything from him on the other end. I thought he was actually very solid as a defensive player.
Yeah.
So to me, the Nuggets, I don't want to say have a Jock Landale problem, because it's only one game. He was good in game 2 as well. But I do think it's something that I look at and I go, do I have confidence that Jeff Green and Aaron Gordon are going to start punishing him on the boards? I don't know. That's what I think Denver's going to have to really think about how they adjust to it.
Second chance points weren't a huge problem in this game, but I will say there were 2 possessions I singled out where MPJ let Landale absolutely just beat him. He just sit there and watched him. And Landale had boxed out Joker. I think it's part of his. MPJ was expecting Joker's got it because it's Joker. And then Landale beat him to it. So I like Landale.
So the rebounding part of it and second chance points are only part of it. Jock Landale drew an enormous amount of fouls. Because I don't remember what his offensive rebound, I think it was 2 or 3. It wasn't crazy. Yeah, just 2. But I would bet he drew 4, 5, maybe 6 offensive fouls just on rebounds alone. Or if he didn't cause a foul, tips the ball in a way that another guy gets it and they get an opportunity again from him. So to me, he was a huge impact guy in this game. And he was, by the way, in game 2 as well. I think the adjustment might have come a little bit later.
I'm wondering if by the end of the series, if the Nuggets don't take control, which by the way, I think they do, but we'll talk about that later. If the Nuggets don't take control, I wonder if like the closing unit is going to be what we saw, like the majority played starters and closers is going to be TJ Warren and Landale. Like that to me is like their best lineup. Is Warren gave them, Warren hit 2 shots and they felt huge, but Warren spaces the floor and provides some size. Like he gives you the shooting that they've been looking for with their wings while also being a bigger body. Thought he played really well, and that combo with Landale has been really good. Landale's ability just to he just gets them down the floor. Like that's
sprinted down the floor a lot. Jokic in the fourth quarter got beat in transition by Jock, but Jock was sprinting. Like it was one of those plays where you're like, my God, that's a younger, more athletic guy with fresher legs. Beats him down court. It was a bad transition defense by Jamal Murray, but it's one of those things where role players have to do the thing they're good at in a way that makes the other team have to work hard. And if his is rebounding and just play like sprinting up and down the court, that's all he has to do. And then to your point about TJ Warren, I didn't think he did anything great in this game besides make the 2 shots in the clutch, which put the game away. But to your point, a lot of this is you need to be able to put a floor spacer on the court. They've tried Damian Lee. Well, he's too bad on defense. He's too little. Like that's a compromise. And if he doesn't hit shots, you're cooked. They've tried Campaign. They've tried Landry Shaman. Those guys have had various levels of success and failure. But TJ, I think, has the highest floor defensively because he's long. And then offensively, even though I think Denver can maybe dare him to shoot more than they did in this game, he's still not a guy that you're totally comfortable with taking open shots. And in this game, in the most important spot, he made them. So to me, they might have landed on 2 guys, Jock Landale and TJ Warren, who are most going to be difficult for Denver to adjust to.
Yeah, the big key here is like you're not looking for guys that are good or great. You're looking for guys that are viable. Like, can they be on the floor in this series? And that's what Monty was searching for, and he seems to have found something that worked, at least in the immediate. I want to kind of – my big takeaway from this is largely pretty positive for Denver, which is I think I listen to a lot of podcasts from fans, honestly. Like I like the fan driven because they really care and they're passionate, So I listen to all the locked ons and I listen to stuff like PHNX. And I listen to the local pods. And like after every playoff game, this is regardless of what team it is, there's always like if this had just happened or, this happened or, they did this and they didn't even get this from this guy. So if they get that, think about how much, it's always this kind of stuff that we talk about. But one of the things I think that I do have to kind of come back to, and I try and, couch this stuff, but this does matter to me. I posted this on Twitter. Teams in the playoffs that have had more points in the paint, more offensive rebounds, more made threes, and more free throws attempted. Denver won all of those categories. They were 108-13 going into last night. Now, those teams are just 3-2 in the playoffs this season because the Phoenix Suns have won 2 of those games. So out of 13 total since 2003, the Suns have won 2 of those, which is impressive. And it shows you like what their formula is. It also shows you how tiny their margin for error is. Yeah. Booker had, I will put Klay Thompson as the best individual scoring performance I've seen in person. I will put Booker second.
Was this the best game of his career?
Given stakes, yeah.
That's what I think too. Like he's had regular season, obviously higher scoring outputs, but the 20 of 25 when you're being guarded the way that he was, and half of his shots, half of them were spectacular. Sometimes you make 5 spectacular shots in a 45-point game, and it's like, hey, he had it going. He had to hit some tough ones over and over again.
I kind of agree with Malone that I think Malone's always going to see defense as the issue when they lose. I do agree with Malone. I think the offense was good enough. I think the defense, like the process could have been better, but their transition defense was terrible. They let Booker get Jamal on an island, and some of those weren't even like cross.
I didn't mind it. I don't mind that.
Okay, why?
Well, for one, he had 20 buckets in this game. He might have had 2 or 3 against Michael Porter. Like I think he was. I don't think when I went back and watched this, I have 0 clips of Porter guarding Booker in a way that I'm like, that's a mistake or he did something wrong. It's like, hey, he contested a shot. He's making shots here.
Agree. No, I'm talking about Jamal.
That's Jamal. Oh, okay.
Yeah. No,
honestly, Jamal is the target. The teams are not targeting MPJ.
No.
They're targeting Jamal.
No, MPJ had 3 bad defensive sequences that I singled out, and they were it was transition, and then like a not great rotation. And even in like 2 of his rotations at the corner were fine. He pushed the guy to the middle. He did everything right. And Payne made an adjustment to make some plays. So it's fine.
I thought that's what Campaign, by the way, was good in this game. He was good in transition with some high profile ones. And again, when you look at this, because I'm with you, man, I don't want to fully say like, oh, nothing to worry about here. Because let's be honest, your point about how they have 2 of these outlier wins, it's kind of what they do. And if you told me Denver will win so long as Booker doesn't continue to go off or KD, I'm like, I don't like that. Well, he's going to go off. He's really good. He scores 43 times in this playoffs already. It's wild. But the margins here, Campaign I thought was good in transition. Denver was bad in transition, I think in part because they got tired. And then almost all of the transition, not all, but I would say a majority of them came off of bad misses or bad decisions by Denver in their own transition, meaning it was a transition miss that led to a transition make the other direction. And like I said, some of it was sloppy play. Michael Porter had one. Jokic had a couple. Murray had a couple. Bruce Brown missed one at the rim that led the other way. But I think a lot of them are more bad process. What are you doing, Christian Brown, attacking 1-on-3 in transition on Devin Booker, trying to draw a foul? I get it. That's not your lane. That's not your lane.
Thank you. Yeah. On the other side, we'll do the contentious second segment. We'll just go ahead and say that now. Jamal Murray. We'll talk about Jeff Green. We'll talk about the bench. I actually
Jamal Murray going to be contentious?
No, it's not going to be contentious. It's going to be, there's just like a lot of, that's like what I think the fan base is most passionate about. And I knew that you were going to be fired up about it. So we'll talk about that in the second segment. And then in the third segment, we'll talk about how much we're concerned. We'll do that when we return on Locked On Nuggets. First, I need to tell you about eBay Motors. For a championship team, it's all about making sure every player is a perfect fit. Yeah, tell me about it. It's the same for when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can be sure every part you need fits right the first time around. Just add your ride to My Garage and look for the green check to know that your part will fit or your money back. Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors. And with over 222 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. We'll be right back on Locked On Nuggets. Back here on Locked On Nuggets. Thanks for joining us and making us part of your day. Appreciate you guys being with us. John asks, he's like, I hope Matt isn't catching any grief for his Colorado hat. Actually, I've gotten a lot of like, hey, welcome. Like the people have been really nice. It's been surprisingly, I don't know. Like, I don't know. Like, it's weird. I guess nobody. Come on, all right. Nobody from Sun's Twitter is out in the streets. I guess is how this goes. If you were what now? Say again.
Nothing. I passed.
Okay. All right. Let's do the Jamal conversation first. So, Jamal is now 1 of 15 in his last 2 games for 3-point range. And after the game, Jamal took responsibility for the loss. Said it was on him. Unfortunately, I was like, after I went back and listened to the quotes, because I went over the Suns post game, and Jamal was basically like, I missed shots, I've got to be better. And I'm like, close, but not quite. Look, there were 2 late sequences where I thought Jokic record scratched, and those are like, come on, you no, the 3 especially got to take that one. But in general, Murray over dribbled. Murray did not trust teammates. Murray did not. He used the 2-man game to get himself in situations which didn't necessarily like. The 2-man game is great because it gets you in leverage situations. Just using Nikola to get you into a shooting position does not necessarily make it a good shot if that's literally what they're guarding, which is what they did. I thought his defense was horrible. I thought his decision making was poor. I thought he had a great first quarter, and he thought he had it going. I think Malone made a key mistake, which you can talk about in a minute, as far as that goes. But in general, this loss I do not believe is on Jamal in its entirety. He is the easiest to blame, but the offensive failures down the stretch and the offensive failures in the bench units, I do think can be most centrally located in Jamal's range of impact.
Well, first of all, Denver had a 111 offensive rating in this game. So regardless of output from Murray and Jokic, this was not a good offensive game from Denver. And this is on the heels of a not good offensive game from Denver.
Correct.
And this is not a good defense in the Phoenix Suns. So to me, the thing that you should be most confident about in the Nuggets is, their offense and their ability to score. So the fact that did not happen here is concerning. But with Murray, I think there's two things on rewatch, a couple things on rewatch. Number one, he loves the matchup with Landry Shamet, and Landry Shamet covered him a lot. And I think every time that Landry Shamet was either on him or switched onto him, Jamal Murray tunnel visioned himself. I got to get into pick and roll and make a play here. Usually, to your point, create a shot for myself because he just loves that matchup. And when he says I got to make shots, I think he's right, because I think he envisions himself to be the guy he is in game one. And he is that guy, just not consistently. And then the second part of this is, so I think he looked at Landry Shamet and was just like, I got to go. And he did not make shots above the level that he needed to play that style. But number two, I do think there's a little bit of it's me versus Booker. And Murray is one of the best shot makers. When he's on, one of the best shot makers in the NBA. Booker's better. If Booker would have missed the shots he took tonight, we would have talked about him the same way we're talking about Jamal right now, forcing it a little bit, relying too much on his jumper. But guess what? He only missed 5 of them all game. He made 20 of them, only missed 5. And I do think there was a little bit of Murray going, I've got to match this in some capacity. And it really wasn't a good offensive process from the Nuggets. And I do think it lands more squarely on him, and in particular in the fourth quarter. And then lastly, Matt, just the third rail of this for me is he looked tired. And it's funny to me because in game 2, Michael Malone said he wore himself out a little bit. He needs to be a little smarter. I think the same thing happened in this game. And it wasn't on the defensive. And last time he said full court pressing, doing this different stuff. In this game, I think it was a little bit of over dribbling. There was 2, 3, 4 possessions in the second half, and in particular in the fourth quarter, where he takes 20 plus dribbles in a possession. That's exhausting. I think he wore himself out in this game down the stretch and just missed everything.
I agree with you. I think I found this stat because I was really curious about it, because I remember him not staggering in some of these games. And so I decided to look it up. This is one of those stats that it's like, you take the end result, and we'll talk about Jeff Green in a minute. And it's like being like, well, Jeff was minus 20, so he was bad. It's like, well, okay, go back and look. And then Adam's got stuff that proves that Jeff was bad, but you do have to actually do the work here. But one of the things I think is interesting is, get this, in games where Jamal plays the entire first quarter and doesn't stagger into the second and fourth, they're 3-0 in the playoffs. In games where he does stagger, they're 3-2.
Why do you think that is? What happens when he doesn't stagger? Who are the players that are playing?
So here's what's really funny is I specifically wanted to take a look at Jeff, because one of the things that I noticed when I was watching the Jeff minutes, when it was a lot of the offense, is a lot of the worst shots from Jamal I felt came when Jeff was on the floor. And some of those came with Jokic on the floor too, the offensive process. And you could be like, well, that's because Jeff doesn't space the floor enough. Fair. But one of the things I just noticed, I looked at playoffs with Jamal on and off. Here's the breakdown. Jamal without Jeff is the best in net rating. Or no, I'm sorry. Jeff without Jamal is the best in net rating because the bench had that awesome run. Okay. Jamal without Jeff is the second best. The worst is Jamal and Jeff together. And the drop off is huge. And in my opinion, a lot of this gets into the bench has an identity that works when it's Bruce and KCP and AG and Jeff and Christian.
That by the way, that identity is defense and score and transition.
Yes. And there's more trust and there's more communication. And honestly, I think part of this is going to sound weird. I do genuinely believe that Jeff gets more engaged. And you don't need to change your lineups to keep Jeff engaged. That's not what you need. Jeff should be engaged all the time, but he's 38 or whatever. But I find that his energy level picks up when he's got Bruce, and he gets more into it when that's their identity and that's how they're playing. And in my opinion, when Jamal is with that second unit, it drags. The same stuff that you talk about with the starters, where it's he's walking the ball up the floor and they're not pushing pace and there's a lot of dribbling. That unit it's like if you took all of the good things about the starters and you removed it, and you still have those elements, that to me is a huge issue. So I am not blaming Jamal Murray for the bench's struggles, because Jamal finished a +5. There was bad stretches all over with this. And I think that everybody, it's a collective thing. But what I do think is that the reason that those bench minutes won is because Jamal was not out there. And I think that Jamal with Nikola should actually be maximized. I think this helps Jamal as well. I think putting Jamal with Nikola as much as possible helps him. I also don't think I noticed on a sequence there was a double drag with Jeff and MPJ, and both of them sprung open on the weak side, and the Suns all went to the middle to stack up against Jamal. And the spacing wasn't great on MPJ, and there was a defender there, so maybe he couldn't have gotten that pass there, and maybe he doesn't trust Jeff. Okay, fine. But I can say that a lot of guards are going to use that leverage to create something effective, and Jamal doesn't do that. He settles for another pull-up shot. So, like, I think that the key is to put Jamal in a situation where he feels that he can be a playmaker, if that's the issue. And I think the key is for the rest of those guys to put them in an environment where they can just create havoc, because that's where they're at their best.
What's interesting about those stats, because I'm always a little skeptical of small sample size in a playoffs, which is all we have to go off of. But nonetheless, the Nuggets bench was terrible in the regular season. Murray anchored the bench in the regular season. So there might be something to this where we can now expand it to a larger sample size that maybe points to something to what you're saying here. The thing I'll say is I do think that in addition to what you're saying, where Murray becomes the main character a little too often, even when he's with Jokic. And Jokic, by the way, earlier this week said he's our best player, which might have backfired. This great leadership moment might have actually backfired in a weird way, where Murray says, "Oh, I am? Okay, watch this." But I think that the other thing Murray does in those minutes that you didn't talk about, he does the James Harden Westbrook thing, where when he's not when they're in the half court, he's not running the pick and roll. He's kind of takes himself out of the play and allows the defense to defend 5-on-4 a little bit. And there's just a lot of like taking his breather in those bench lineups where it's like, you can't do that. If you're out there, you need to make an impact. If not, KCP can space the floor. You guys are the same as floor spacers. So I think that there's a little bit of that as well. But I agree with you that I think a lot of players, Jeff probably one of them, but certainly Michael Porter, I think doesn't believe he's going to see the ball when Murray is kind of in his zones.
Yeah. And it lessens the impact of everybody. So like a lot of this is, it gets into, they need to not play Jamal. And it's like, no, that's not true. I think Jamal makes the starters better. I think whether it's Jamal with Bruce or Jamal with KCP, both of those lineups have absolutely cooked.
He's their second most important player. Like this is not a realization of that. Right. But I will say game 1, he was on fire. Game 2, he was terrible. Game 3, I think he tried to be on fire again in a way that you're not going to beat you're not going to win the series by Jokic and Murray outplaying Booker and KD. They might outplay him, but that's not the formula. The formula is you have an offense that can't be stopped. You have 5 guys in your starting lineup that are a threat at all times. You have plenty of blended lineups where the offense should still work. It's a team versus a team who has 2 guys and is trying to figure out if they have the right role players to play any combination, let alone 48 minutes of combinations. Yeah. You have to win as a team, and I think this one became a little bit too much of a Murray trying to match Booker in some capacity to win the game. And by the way, Matt, they almost did. Down the stretch when I watched it, for all the things that happened in this entire game, with 3 minutes to go, it's right there neck and neck, and Denver missed every single shot they had, and they were great shots. They didn't go 1 for 5. They didn't go 1 for 8. They just went 0 for on all of those open threes.
I want to talk bench before we go to the other side, but I will say in the last segment, this is not the win that if I'm a Suns fan, I wanted. Like, you can't be choosers when you're down 0-2. Right. But there's some concern there. Jeff Green was minus 20. I went back and I watched 1342 of his minutes, the entirety of his minutes today. There are sequences that you've pulled that you sent me one and had me look at it, and you can talk about the issues that he presented there. He got beat by Jock Landale on rebounds, but their second chance points weren't like the Nuggets didn't lose the second chance points battle.
They do draw fouls there, and those fouls add up. So
yeah, that's true.
That's impact.
True. Essentially, a lot of this is I don't want to be inconsistent. Like that's important to me, right? And if I'm like, if a guy is minus 20, something didn't work, right? I'm going to be consistent there. Like it didn't work with Jeff last night. Absolutely did not work in his minutes last night across like a lot of combinations. Do I think that everybody but Jeff played well? No, I don't. Do I think that Jeff made the situation worse? I do. So I don't want to sit here and be like, I have like a whole thing. I consider like, one, I don't know that I think that anybody else would have given them what they need. We could talk about maybe options, but I'll let you go ahead and give your take on the Jeff Green minutes here.
Well, the thing I'm just curious about is they look like one of the adjustments they looked to make in this one was to use KD and pick and roll a little bit more, and in particular attacking on pick and roll, meaning not just trying to play around the perimeter and get shots up, but go at the rim. Jeff Green, obviously one of the rim protectors with his athleticism and size, so naturally pulling him out on the perimeter is going to open up the paint. But he got beat on a rejection of the screen twice as the ball handler. If you get the two ways you can screw up pick and roll defense so bad that there's no recovery is to get split, the two defenders get split, or to get beat rejecting the screen because there's no help there. Everybody's out of position. If you get beat rejecting, then the whole defense is compromised. Twice that happened for buckets. And then a third time it happened when he was actually guarding the big. Bruce got beat there. I'm not sure if there was a communication breakdown or what. It was a little bit more of it looked like the screener, KCP, was unclear which way he was supposed to be jumping, and he gets beat on it. So maybe that one had to do with Jeff as well. But either way, using Kevin Durant running downhill off of screen and roll worked in this game to get him to the line. So I think that was the point of emphasis, and it worked for him drawing fouls. I think in the next game, by the way, Denver's counter might be to take Jeff off in some of those moments, so that when the screen happens, they can just switch it. That might be your default setting is to put like Christian on KD, not because you want him guarding him, but because he can guard him in space okay, but at least it takes away the screening action because you can just switch Jeff or AG onto KD.
Got it. Here's one of the challenges with Christian is one of the reasons that I've said that like this is going to be tough for Christian, as much as everybody, like including me, loves his defense, is I know he will, like, I'm not surprised at his foul trouble. And that's not the thing that, like, Christian in 3 years is not going to get as many calls as he got. Like fouls, like he will get a better whistle.
The thing is, Matt, though, I'm not worried about it. Like, what did he play in this game? I mean, he had 5 fouls in 10 minutes. Honestly, is he playing more than 15 minutes a game in this series?
Maybe not. Maybe he needs to. Maybe it would help on slowing down Book. Just get him out of rhythm or something.
I don't think officiating was a storyline in this game. By the way, like there was calls, of course, I disagreed with, but I don't think that was like the reason Denver lost.
Yeah, I don't either.
KD did draw a lot of contact on those drives that I was like, come on, man. Like this, I hate the way the NBA is officiated when guards are driving downhill, just the slightest contact. I think that this was probably, if you just talk about all the 50-50 calls, especially on KD, I think he probably got more than he will get on average in this series, but not so much that I think it changed the game like that.
Long time watcher Robert says MPJ can't get any of them Jeff Green minutes. He'll rebound at least. Did rebound really well. I have very strong feelings about MPJ's game. Do
you want to take a break and do it on the other side? We have one more break.
Yeah, let's go ahead and take a break. We'll talk about MPJ's game, and we'll get into our level of concern for the Nuggets as the series is now 2-1 headed into game 4. We'll do that when we return on Locked On Nuggets. Back here on Locked On Nuggets, thanks for joining us. Picking it back up, Robert said MPJ can't get any of them Jeff Green minutes. He'll rebound at least. So here I want to my thoughts on MPJ are very layered. The rebounding was awesome. He was really good on the glass. Defensively, he is not able to be picked on still, and thought that he was in the half court stuff was really good. He had some really bad lapses in transition. He got really turned around on a few of them, and it was a problem. Like some of the transition stuff was absolutely MPJ.
He had that in game 2, by the way, and I pointed out some of his transition stuff on the list.
The drives into nowhere are a problem. Like he's dribbling in. There's 3 different drives in the first half where he's driving into nothing. Essentially, like all of this, like the good stuff for MPJ comes down to an incredible dunk, which I do not want to take away from because that was absolutely nasty and filthy and on KD's head. That was an incredible dunk. That was an amazing athletic play and a great pass from Joker. If they won this game, that would have been like we would have talked about that for like 5 minutes. And then spot up threes.
And rebounding, those 3. I'd add rebounding to that.
And so, like, as the game went on, like, I started off with such a negative in my notes on him that it's like, when I got to the end of it, I was like, okay, he winds up as a positive. Like, he winds up as a net positive, with 21 points, 7 of 14, 6 of 10, because he got really hot in the second half, especially like he was huge in that third quarter run where they got right back into the game, and he was late. He was great in the fourth. But 21 and 12 is hard to argue with when they won his minutes. There's a lot of stuff that I think he could have done better. This wasn't like one of the better MPJ games, but it was like good enough. He also played 37 minutes, so it's not like he's not playing minutes. one more thing on the defensive pick and rolls. I want to get into our level of concern for the Nuggets. Joker played a little bit more drop in this game, and I don't know if that was called or if that was his decision, but it kind of speaks to how much more the Nuggets were just a little bit more passive in this game. Like they weren't as physical. They weren't up in guys' jerseys as like they were in games 1 and 2. There was a little bit of like, okay, let's kind of see how it goes. And the Suns hit them the way that they did. Now, I thought that it was really good that the Suns came out and hit them, and then the Nuggets came right back and won the first quarter, right? And had they not lost the bench minutes, they win this game. I do think that it's interesting that like there was just there was one possession where Booker was able to like he'd already hit a couple of shots and he snakes free and drop coverage. And then there's a few more, and a lot of it too was they're hanging Jokic out not in deep drop but in mid drop to allow time to apply to force that low man down to open up that wing shooter. And now that they're playing Ross and Warren, they got this. They got one on the right side with a clear out. They got Ross up top. So like the Suns are getting better at attacking Denver's pick and roll coverage, which got them really off of their game in games 1 and 2. And I don't know like if the move there is for Denver to switch it up or to change assignments. I don't know what the adjustments are going to be there, but that's like that's a razor thin thing that Denver's trying to walk right now, I think.
I saw you tweet that out. I didn't notice it on my rewatch. I don't have any notes on that in particular. So I don't. To me, it wasn't much. For the most part, Denver's playing Jokic up on screens with KD and Booker, dropping on everyone else.
Level of concern 1 to 5. It's an interesting question, I think, right now. Because in reality, the Nuggets won the 2 home games. The Suns win the home game that they had to get. Like, I thought the Suns would win this game. Harris and I talked about it before the game, and we were both like, yeah, it feels like Suns. In this,
to be honest with you, this game went the way I think you would have scripted it, right? Home team, one star got the foul calls, and Kevin Durant. He was aggressive. He earned them, but he got the foul calls. And the other one was on fire, and Denver, like, did they look helpless? No. They looked close, but just a little below what they needed, and the home team won. So this one kind of matched the script.
Yeah. And that's why my concern level is a 2, because honestly, and I don't want to like, Suns fans were like, but KD couldn't hit a shot there for 3 quarters and we still blah, blah, blah. And like Jokic had this amazing game, and it's like, yeah, this is the playoffs. Amazing players have amazing games in these playoffs.
Also, Jokic has had amazing games pretty much. Jokic, I don't think, has a stinker in this. He has things that he didn't do well, but all of his games have either been good or great. Like more so even than Kevin Durant. Like Kevin Durant's a great player. He has some stinkers. Jokic has been either here or here.
The Suns needed to win this game by like 15 to 20. This needed to be like Suns, like Warriors, Lakers game 2. You come back and you absolutely you're like, okay, we're gonna win this game. And instead it was a battle all the way down. The fact that the Nuggets erased a 15-point halftime lead, like I was like, what? Like they did it, and they did it like that. And again, like a lot of guys played, like Booker was amazing. It was an incredible performance by Devin, like in all aspects. Like part of what gets lost is he had all that scoring. He also had 9 assists.
He's unbelievable, man. He is so freaking like fundamental.
Yeah. And I thought, Lando gave them really good minutes, and Campaign did just enough, and TJ Warren and Ross gave them like just enough. But the problem is like that's what we're talking about here, is like just enough when Denver plays badly. I don't usually say this, but I will. I like Denver in game 4. I think Denver wins game 4 to go up 3-1.
I'm with you. I think I would probably go 2 or maybe like 1.75. Like I don't even know if I'm in a full 2 yet. If they lose game 4, like the game becomes a 3-game series becomes more random. Like the more it becomes random, the more worried you should just be in general. Mm-hmm. You look at Devin Booker. This is his 3rd 40-point game. He has another that was 39. So he has 4 39-point or better games in the playoffs right now. That's absurd. For half of his games, he scores 40. That's absurd right now. So this idea that whatever Booker did in game 3, he'll not do again. I think it's true when you think about 20 of 25. Like if he does that again, my God, we're talking about an all-time series.
If he goes 40 of 50 in 2 games.
Yeah, that's like better than Bubble Murray. But the thing is, everybody said this about Bubble Murray in game 5. Well, that won't happen again. It happened 2 more times, like in game 6 and game 7. So I guess in game 7, it was more yoke. But the point is that Booker and Kevin Durant combined are more than good enough that you might get that performance from one of them in each of the next 3 games. Like, you just might get it because they're that talented. That being said, I think Denver can win a game like this when one player is so ridiculously on fire. I think Denver can win it anyway. And on top of that, I think there are things Denver can do to mitigate the impact that he had. Now, I have to give you credit. Coming into the series, you thought Denver would guard KD well and would not have an answer for Booker. I think that's been the case. KD's good enough that he can have good games, even with, I think, Aaron Gordon playing the best defense of his career. But Booker right now is not bothered at all by KCP, at all. And that's scary to me. When you start to think about adjustments for Denver, I know you're not a big fan of it. Christian Brown, to me, is at least worth it. They tried everybody, by the way. Like, Malone did a good job. Bruce guarded him for a bit. Murray guarded him for a bit. KCP. Like, they didn't just give him one look. They gave him everything. Christian needs to defend without fouling and maybe try him out. Like, he's been a better defender on KD. I don't think he's guarded Booker a whole lot, but maybe it's a thing to try. And then number 2, I know you don't want to go to the emergency well just yet, and I don't think you do this in game 4. But if KCP is this uncomfortable guarding him, if Bruce and Christian combined aren't making a big enough impact, you might just have to find somebody. Jock Landale is not a guy I would have expected to make an impact in this series, yet here we are. And sometimes it's just a matter of we need somebody that can get a stop here. And right now, I just don't have faith that that's KCP.
Peyton, I'm just really worried about him.
It's a bit of a panic move, to be honest.
It's a lot to ask of him. Like, that's a lot to, like, Christian's is one thing, because, like, Christian, from the very moment he stepped on the floor this season, it was like, I legitimately, after his first good game, after I spoke to him in the locker room, I came back in the media room and said, that kid's going to have a 15-year career. I was just like, he's going to play like 12. Like, he's rock solid, you know? I just don't know that, like, Peyton's there. And it could work, but it could also be, like, it could be one of those things where you do it for 2 minutes and it's a crucial 2 minutes and it's a disaster.
The Suns did this in game 1 and 2. They tried out guys that you wouldn't expect them to go to, and it didn't work. It took 3 games before they found the combo that does work. Mm-hmm. And I think if you're Denver, you don't want that to happen. You don't want to put P-Watt out there and it's a 10-0 run, and you're like, well, that not only didn't work, the game's probably a loss now.
I'll also agree with you that, the offense, like, you're right that 111 is not good enough, right? And so a lot of this is now I think some of this is related where the Suns got in the cycle of run the ball, get transition buckets, set your half-court defense, right, over and over and over again. The Nuggets did not dictate this game, but they are going to need to get, like, better offensive performances across the board. And some of that, some of that is Murray shooting, some of that is Murray decision making, some of that is probably getting MPJ going, some of that is finding KCP more looks. Like, there's a number of ways that this can go. But I also think that you can probably trust the offense. I trust the offense still more than I trust the defense. And I think
one other thing real quick, Matt. I thought Denver was more tired than the Suns down the stretch. Yeah. And that's so disheartening to me because Booker and KD have to do more for their team and play more minutes. Mm-hmm. And to me, the fact that Murray was the one that looked like he could not stand up straight because he was so tired while Booker is going to the basket in the fourth quarter and in the clutch is a little concerning. But part of this is, again, I think Murray has to really figure out the optimization of his battery. Like, I think there was a little bit of wasted battery on things that are like, hey, man, chill. And then on the other side, does Denver have the personnel to do this? I don't know. KCP was a non-factor on offense in this game. I think he went 1 of 3 or 1 of 4. Like, he doesn't even get shots off. Yeah. If you're not going to be a factor on offense, why is Denver letting Booker walk the ball up the court every time? I don't get it. Murray's tired because they're putting full court press. No matter who's on him, they're just making him have to crouch and bring the ball up. That's exhausting. Booker got 8 seconds off every play just to walk the ball up and get into his sets. And to me, maybe you're worried about fouls, but every minute Bruce is out there, every minute Christian's out there, and if KCP's not going to be an offensive threat, every minute he's out there, they should be making him work full court. It doesn't make an impact on one play. It makes an impact on 40 plays in a row.
It's hard. And if this is not an indictment, I don't think, on Denver. This is a normal thing in the NBA, is that in game 3 up 2-0, you're not in hungry attack mode. Denver, to me, dialed it back. And then one of the reasons I genuinely think they did is that I think they were like, we might be able to, like, withstand the first run and then sneak this one. because they almost did. And I'm not saying it was intentional, but I do think that like now it's like a desperation time. Like you need to win game 4 because
Denver could have won this game if they didn't make mistakes to a larger degree than they did in games 1 and 2.
Yeah, I agree. So overall, not worried. We'll see how game 4 goes. I'm here in Phoenix. We will probably record. I'll probably do a post game on Sunday night to set us up for Monday, and then you're not going to record late on Monday as I'm flying back on Monday morning. That's probably what we'll do. Or you can solo on Monday to get your thoughts in as well, because we could always use more episodes. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Have yourselves a great weekend. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday and game 4. We'll be back afterwards with reaction. Make sure to hit the like, review, and subscribe. Hit the likes on YouTube. We really appreciate you guys listening to that message and helping us get past Locked On Suns, because
did we pass him?
Yep, we passed Locked On Suns. So Brendan Clean can go to hell. I'm just kidding. Brendan's really nice. He's like way too nice. You have good foils at PHNX. You have like a good like counter programming of personalities. Brendan Clean is just a really good dude. He's really smart. You should check out Locked On Suns. It's a good show. Have yourselves a great Saturday. We'll see you guys again next time. Thanks for joining us on Locked On Nuggets.